Transformers Legacy. Wow, that lined up pretty good. Shadow Striker. Let's do this. Okay. So, yeah, Shadow Striker. I really like Shadow Striker in Cyberverse. I was really hoping I could get a hold of a Laserbeak to go with her for this video, but just have not been able to get around to it yet, so oh well. For those who know, you know. But yeah, so I have my misgivings about this figure that a lot of people do, but there are also some things about it that I think are pretty cool. And let's just get into it. So yeah, Shadow Striker is this car that, like, nothing about this aside from the robot mode head is particularly like Cyberverse Shadow Striker in terms of look, but I think that's okay for my purposes anyway. But I think the car actually looks pretty cool. Minus this thing up top here. I do not like this being plugged in up here. You can't really put it, like, you can kind of put it back here if you want and hide it like that, but that's about it. I really wish there was a way to, like, tuck this inside here. I just don't think it fits anywhere else, and that's a shame. Like, it just sit inside the car, but whatever. But yeah, we'll look at this more later. But I think her vehicle mode is actually pretty cool. I don't think it's, you know, entirely on point with her Cyberverse vehicle. You know, I'm not saying that, but for what it is, it's neat. I also think it's kind of interesting how it tapers towards the front. Like, you can actually kind of see how it's wider in the back, and then it just kind of gradually pinches in more as you get to the front until you eventually get to the actual front, and it really kind of takes a dramatic turn. But I don't know, it's a neat design. The contours are cool. There's not a lot of paint going on all the way around. There is some, but it is what it is. I mean, like, the whole top of the car is painted because this is all red plastic, and we'll get to that later. But, you know, aside from that, like, you've got red on the wheels, which I do appreciate them painting the rims. It just stinks that these pegs are purple. Would have been nice if those were black, but I could always paint them myself. Around the back, you have taillights that are painted in, so that's something. And then around the front, you have the headlights and a little detail up there, and then, of course, the engine that's all painted in. The rest of it is pretty much just all purple plastic, which is fine. Now, on the underside, it actually hides away the robot bits pretty well, all things considered. Like, if you know what you're looking for, you can see the legs and feet here. But for the most part, it comes together really well. The car is this pretty sleek-looking thing. The red windows on purple, I actually think it's kind of cool. And at least with this, like, I would have preferred it if this wasn't translucent plastic, obviously, but at least with this, it's a dark shade of translucent plastic, so you can't so easily see all the junk in there. Like, you can see her head in there if you know what you're looking for. Like, just right there. There's her face, just peeking out. But it's, you know, it's okay. I think, again, this is a dark enough tone that it's not too bad. It just sucks that I can't quite get it to line up right in the back. It's like popping up a little bit on this side, and I just don't understand why. Like, I've tried really squeezing it down, it just doesn't seem to want to work, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know, it's a neat looking car mode, and because you've got this port on the back, you can plug in a blast effect and do that. It's a very shallow peg, though, or a peg hole, so this is not gonna stay in there super well. And that's about all I can say about the car. I think it does look neat. I like that it's really low centered and pinched towards the front. Not accurate to her vehicle in Cyberverse, but I'm not particularly bothered by that. Now, in terms of size, let's bring in our size comparisons. And once again, as a reminder, Artfire has been replaced by Buzzworthy Grimlock, which is why, or not Grimlock, Buzzworthy Dinobot. I just said Grimlock. So that's why he is there. Let's raise this up a bit. There we go. So there they all are. So that's how she measures up there. She looks very tiny. And for a proper like legacy and legacy deluxe comparison, this one's kind of interesting. So here is Shadow Striker with Burnout, and Burnout looks massive next to Shadow Striker. But Burnout's also a much bulkier design. And like, I don't know, weight-wise, they don't feel all that dissimilar. So, yeah. It's interesting how slim and sleek, comparatively, Shadow Striker's car mode is. But of course, we got to do the most important size comparison here. Here she is with the duck tank. Now, before we turn Shadow Striker into a robot, just if you like this video, or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel, I'm doing this thing again, sorry, and you want to support me, I've got a Patreon or Ko-fi, links to both down in the description. They'll also be on the end card. Otherwise, you can always do the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. And with that all out of the way, let us transform Shadow Striker. And this transformation is interesting. So, first thing, I'm going to pop the back off. It actually, it pegs in. There's a peg hole right here. It's a little peg here. And that's where it pegs in. But there's also these little slots on either side here that go over these tabs on either side. So that's how that comes in. You don't want to twist it or turn it as you're trying to pull it off. You just pull it straight back. And now I'm going to try to take care of the hood or the roof section. This can kind of pull up a little bit, untab in a few different places. And there we go. And then we can pull back to pull up this arm. It is on the arm, it pegs in. And now I'm going to try and use this little armature to bring it up. The reason I'm being so careful with it is because this little armature here, it's not pinned in, it's just clear plastic over this little bit here, and it pops off really easily. So I'm just trying to do this without it popping off. Not that I'm worried about it being damaged, it's just annoying to, it's annoying that it pops off. So that up and out of the way. Get this up and out of the way, and the arms do actually tab in. There are little tabs down here and slots on the undersides of the arms. They do tab in down there. But bring that up and out of the way. Now, can get these panels done. These tab in right here. Let's just give that a little tug, and that'll unclip, and there you can see the tab. So that swings out. And same deal here. Just pegs in very solidly. And up here, these feet actually tab in, so you can pull those down too, just to get this separated. There's these little, not sure how easily this will show up. There are these little tabs right there that tab into the tops rather of the heels. You don't need to do this right now, really, but I'm doing it just to, get it out of the way. Now, getting the legs out, I've seen it done a couple of different ways. The way that works for me the best is to basically, you want to grab these two sections. You can kind of see how the headlight sections are separated from the centerpiece. And grab these two sections because there's a little lip here where you can see they're over the robot hips. Just grab those and pull them out so that they kind of pull out and back so that you can get them a little bit, moving a little bit. And then just push, and they should bring the whole hood section up. It's a little bit tricky, but that's what works for me. And then going back, it's the same deal. You just bring this down, and it'll eventually kind of, like these bits will kind of go over stuff, and you just want to give them an extra little push. But bring those up, and now with those up and these untabbed, you can untab the thighs, because the thighs do actually tab in here. So you want to pull out. You can just see that little tab there. So pull out, swing the leg up. Again, untab that, swing the leg up, and straighten out the feet. And now, the knees. For reasons I cannot fathom, the knees tab in. There's no reason for it. It's such a superfluous thing because the insides of the thighs tab in up here, so that holds them steady, and then the heels tab in back here. So why, and also if you look at how this is oriented, the knee would bend up into the car if it wasn't tabbed in. So like, there's no way it's going to do that because the hip is tabbed in and this tabs into the back of the car. There's literally, like, there is no reason for that knee tab to be there. So that's kind of irritating, especially because it's like a common breakage point. I have found so far I've been able to transform it without it being a problem, but it's probably because of something I've been aware of and have been taking steps to do it a certain way. Because what I do is, rather than just popping the knee down, I kind of push up. Like I push down on the hip and push up on the shin. So I'm kind of like pinching, pressure-wise, pinching these two pieces together. And as I'm pushing, then I bend the knee, and that causes it to pop. And that seems to be avoiding stressing that tab too much. That's just how I've been doing it. And going back into vehicle mode, it's the same deal when I kind of push them both towards each other and then click the knee in place. So that is how I've been doing it. It's hard to see. Like, I think it's just shine from the light that's making it look like there's stress on that plastic. But yeah, that's how I've been doing it. Again, just push together and pop the knee. So that way it just, my thinking is that it takes some of the pressure off of the tab, because like if you just bend the knee, it kind of pulls the tab down slightly. So I think when you're pushing up, that helps to kind of have it, like have the, it untap more this way rather than this way, which I think will prevent it from breaking. But the thing is, it doesn't need to be there in the first place. So if it breaks, it's not really a problem, but whatever. Now, for the rest of the transformation, I'm going to take this little midsection here in front of the engine, and that is just a little folding door that folds in and tucks under the engine block section here. And now these headlight sections can fold in a bit. Not all the way, but fold in a bit. And once you fold those in, you can bring the chest, the engine chest, obviously chest section down, and it will kind of sit flush, and then you can bring these up and they will sort of lock the chest together. And I will talk about that more in a little bit, but that's how that comes together. Now this armature comes down and this armature can come forward, but before you close all this up, you actually want to take these wheel sections and spread them back. And there are little slots and tabs here so that you can click these wheels together with this little assembly here so that the wheels are kind of parallel along the back. And with that done, this armature can come down, and there is a tab and a slot here and a tab and a slot here. So this all hinges in and clips together and makes the torso, like puts the arms in place, get those arms adjusted, and then these panels just kind of sit along her back. And I don't like that very much, but whatever. And here we've got Shadow Striker in her robot mode. And as you can see, it is possible to transform her from robot to vehicle, and vehicle to robot rather, and robot to vehicle without removing this. I don't super enjoy doing it, but it is possible. I mean, the thing is, I don't enjoy pegging it and unpegging it either, so this is just easier for me because that one thing pops out so easily. But yeah, unfortunately, we are now left with this piece in addition to this, which we'll talk about them later. But yeah, this is kind of like, it's unfortunate that's a little parts forming piece, but whatever. So, Shadow Striker's robot mode. I both have no problem with it and am also thoroughly disappointed by it, which I know is a contradiction. What I mean is, as a standalone robot, even as Shadow Striker, doesn't really bother me. I think the proportions for what they are pretty decent. They're a little weird, but they're pretty decent. The color separation is definitely nice. There is way more paint and, again, color separation in this robot mode versus the vehicle, because now you've got a lot of alteration between purple and black going all the way up the legs and in the arms. There's some really nice metallic purple on top of the regular purple, which that looks great in the forearms there, but you don't really get it anywhere else. And that's weird to me. I kind of wish that that metallic purple showed up maybe in the legs somewhere too, or whatever. You've got a little bit of a metallic, almost like sky blue in the midsection there, which is cool. The engine makes for a visually interesting chest, though inaccurate. And also, yes, I know, we will talk about it. But I do think the color breakup here is actually pretty nice, and that head is spectacular. We will talk about that again in a minute. But then you've got like the big kibble cape on the back, which as it is okay. Like, I don't mind the kibble cape on its own, but for Shadow Striker, it doesn't sit right with me for like a Shadow Striker thing. That's just a little bit like, that is a little disappointing. Now, something that I thought would be cool is if you could store the weapons in these little clip pegs for the wheels, but they're not 5mm. This will not fit in there. So that stinks. So you can't do that, which means you can't take this and peg it in there. What you can do is you can very carefully, because I don't want to pop this thing off, you can unpeg this from the arm, and it's supposed to be able to peg in back here, but I have not had an easy time doing that, because basically the width of this hinge around the peg keeps it from being able to go in very far because of the wheels back there. So like as I try and plug this in, I can kind of plug it in, but like that's as far as it'll go because of those wheels. It's really not in there very tightly. And also it sticks out really far because it, you know, the way it's designed, it's on this big hinge. You can kind of bring the cape back a little bit, but that's, I don't know. I'm not really feeling that. So we'll just disconnect that and plug it back into the arm. And again, this is a thing I really don't like doing on this figure just because I don't want to pop the this whole thing off. But what I will do is hinge it back so that it's not sticking out quite as far, and that gives it at least a little bit more of a like flush, clean shield look. And yeah, it's, I don't know, the core basic robot is, it's cool in its own way, but the big thing that really disappoints me about this is it's Shadow Striker. It's Cyberverse Shadow Striker. And if you're familiar with Cyberverse and you're familiar with Shadow Striker, you know that she should not have, at the very least, she should not have a uniform color scheme. I think because of like, you know, budget or whatever, they also, and also the thing to acknowledge, this is definitely going to be RAD Sideburn at some point. Obviously, especially when you take the Evo fusion into consideration and plug the gun into the bumper section, whether it goes that way or that way, I don't remember, but like, yeah, it's supposed to be Sideburn. Again, we'll look at this later. But so like, I understand why the sculpt is symmetrical for the robot mode. I get that because they're going to retool it into Sideburn or repaint it into Sideburn. I do understand that. What bugs me about this is the legs and arms are both painted in at least a couple of different places. So at the very least, it would have been nice if they had like an asymmetrical color scheme going here, because in Cyberverse, a big part of Shadow Striker's character design is that kind of cobbled together look, because, you know, the whole Bumblebee nearly killed me and now my life is a living nightmare because I'm wearing my teammates' body parts as replacement parts. Like, it's kind of really messed up when you think about it, but the point is, she's supposed to have an asymmetrical design, more asymmetrical than Lockdown even. And I completely understand not doing that for the sculpt, but I really wish they had done something asymmetrical for the paint job. Give her a green leg, give her a white leg, give her, you know, like just mix up the colors at least a little bit. I'm sure there's a reason why they didn't, but it's disappointing that they didn't push that asymmetry angle because it's frickin' Shadow Striker, you know? I could paint it myself, and I probably will at some point. And like the other thing that irritates me about the lack of asymmetry, I'm sorry I keep going on about this, but this is something I've been wanting to talk about with this figure for a while, so y'all are gonna have to bear with me. But the other thing that really bugs me about the asymmetry is it's the arms and the legs that are asymmetrical on her design. The arms and the legs. And the arms and the legs, barring these very specific hip pieces on the outside here with the wheels on them, the arms and the legs are both entirely covered up in vehicle mode. So changing their color, or even changing their sculpt, but just changing their color would have zero impact on the cohesiveness of the vehicle mode. So again, like they absolutely, it's probably a budgetary thing. I'm just assuming, I'm pure speculation on my part, but like it's probably a budgetary thing. But I feel like they really, like this figure really needed to have at least an asymmetrical color scheme. Heck, even if they just had the blacks and purples in different arrangements on each limb, you know, it would have been something. But that's not what they did, and so yeah, it's disappointing. It is disappointing to me as a mild Shadow Striker fan that they didn't push that asymmetrical angle, at least in the body. They did, however, do the asymmetrical thing for the head. You can see she's got that giant out-of-place eye, which is good. This is a great head sculpt. This looks like Cyberverse Shadow Striker if it's done through like a legacy filter, which it is. The head design is great. There's a lot of individual details. I really like the fact that they didn't just paint this little thing on top of the head red. They did silver and red. Like that's two different colors in a very small detail right at the top there. I like the black that they put just above the visor for like eyebrows. You got a little bit of that metallic purple in the chin, a little bit of that metallic blue from here in the face, and then of course the red eye and then the big ol' lens eye. It's a fantastic head sculpt, and the coloring on it is great. I'm just really annoyed that they didn't do the asymmetry thing with the limbs. Anyway, the articulation on Shadow Striker is pretty good. The arms have certain limitations we'll get to, but the head is on a ball joint with the ball actually going down into the torso, so you get some good down and decent up motion. You don't really get any side to side because the ball is sitting a little too far into the torso for it to have enough wiggle space, which is oh well. And then the head can rotate, so it is pretty stiff to a degree, but you can rotate the head, of course. The arms, we'll do this one because it doesn't have the shield on it. They can go in and out. They can go out all the way and down that far. They cannot go back at all because the arms are actually attached to this back assembly piece. So if we disconnect that, you can see the arms come with it. So you can't go back on the arms, and also the arms sit further back on the torso from the neck, so it looks a little awkward from some angles. From the front and from like a slight angle, it looks fine, but like from here, it does look a little weird. But yeah, you can't go back on the arms, but you can swing the arms forward up to almost 90 degrees. And then, of course, you get bicep swivel, you get a almost 90 degree bend at the elbow, and you do get wrist rotation. So, aside from the shoulders, the arms are pretty posable. In addition to that, these little tape wings can be moved out of the way if you want. You do get waist rotation, and this is actually pretty cool because you've got this big old assembly back here, this big accordion of hinges, and you'd think that would get in the way, but it absolutely doesn't. Like, when you start going all the way around, it does bang into it, but then this can kind of untab and lift out of the way a bit if you really want it to. But like, it's cut and designed in such a way that you can rotate that waist pretty thoroughly without things banging together, which is actually really nice. And the hips can go forward to about 90 before things start clashing into the torso. And go back with these bits out of the way that can go back to about 90. You go out to 90, you do get a thigh rotation, and the knees can bend to ever so slightly past 90. The problem with this is because of that tab, you can't straighten the knees out. They're always going to be slightly bent. And again, like that tab just doesn't need to be there. I might just shave it off myself at some point. I don't know, but it's just weird. But yeah, that's how that works. Then for the feet are actually pretty posable too. You get ankle tilts, but in addition to that, you also get some forward tilt because of the transformation. So you can actually use that for some like walking or running poses. So posability, pretty good, aside from the shoulders. And again, I do think this robot mode looks pretty cool, aside from the lack of asymmetry. Now, something else I wanted to talk about is the reason why I ended up getting Shadow Striker, aside from the fact that I just like Shadow Striker in Cyberverse, is because I actually saw a TFW post, and I unfortunately forget who made the post, but and I'm too lazy to go look it up, apparently. But saw a TFW post where someone posted a thing that kind of it fan modes the chest a little bit, but in a way that I think is actually really beneficial. So one thing to do that I like to do first off is just take these little pieces and fold them up, because that gets them visually out of the way. They do stick out a lot going back that way, but like if you got room on the shelf, it's fine. Though it does make me wish that these hinges could just go up all the way so that these could just be sitting like up higher, because I don't really understand why this needed to happen. But whatever. But do that. Going to just kind of get the arms up a little bit and out of the way. And what I'm going to do is take the chest and just kind of pull it out a little bit. And then these will just kind of naturally sit where they are. And this actually, like, you can force the chest back in, but it does actually fairly solidly sit without clipping in. And like, it's not much, but it adds just a little bit of a slope to the chest, and I think that makes it a lot more visually interesting. It works better as Shadow Striker for her like character model design. Yes, I know I'm talking about a lady's chest, but like, hear me out here. It works with the character design, and like this, when it's like this, it's just kind of boring. And I don't mean that in like a haha lady parts thing. I mean like it's just flat and boring. This is going to be boring on what's his name? Sideburn. This is going to be flat and boring on Sideburn. It's more accurate though, so I think people are going to be more going to be more inclined to give it a pass. But like, I just think this adds some much needed extra dimension to the chest, even if it is somewhat subtle. And then as a bonus, you can actually untab these sections on the back here and bring the arms forward ever so slightly to just kind of bring them in a little bit closer to the top of the body, which I think changes the silhouette enough to make it look pretty cool. Also, if you really wanted to, you could untab this to bring that up a little bit. There's lots of things you can do with this with this robot, though it starts to look a little bit weird. Point is, I think having these clicked out a little bit up here and having the chest kind of pulled out a little bit really does help with the look of the figure. It is still not accurate to Shadow Striker aside from the head, because she does not have an engine on her chest. She's not asymmetrical. The headlights do look a little bit evocative of Cyberverse Shadow Striker, but they don't end up on the torso. They're inside the torso, so that's kind of whatever. But like, I think for what it is, this is fine. I definitely would like if the arms could go back more. I would definitely like it if if there was asymmetry to her design. But as she is, I think this does actually look pretty cool. And also, I wish these flipped up more, but hey, whatever. Now, for the weapons, she has her gun, which is this weird looking, like, I get this weird crustacean vibe from it because of like the ridges up here. And this can go in her hand as you do. Or there is a peg hole back here and a little peg up here, you can peg the gun in there for storage if you want to do that. It doesn't work in vehicle mode because that's like right up against the arms, but you can store it in there if you want. Also, of course, you can plug it into like the forearm if you want to do that. What I like to do is use this weird little bit here, and you want to angle it because of this tab, but like slide that into her hand like so, and then use one of the blast effects I have laying around and just stick that in there to give her this kind of like lightsaber looking thing, which I think that's actually pretty cool. So that is how that's how I have that done. Now for this, we saw the Evo Fusion thing, which is, it's whatever. When Sideburn eventually comes out, I'm sure people will love it. You can plug this into her forearm to give her like a little like armor-plated forearm thing, forearm guard, which I think that doesn't look bad. But the reason I don't like this is because it's just kind of like another part that I've got to remember to take off, you know, when transforming her. And like if you plug it in all the way, it can be a little bit annoying to take off. Not impossible, it's still a little bit annoying because it's such a narrow, like it's just so narrow here. It's almost the width of the forearm. So what I end up doing is I actually peg it on here with the part with the headlights facing towards the back, because that's where there's a decent slope and it gives you just enough space. It doesn't peg on super solidly, but you can peg this in place and that holds in just fine. And it kind of, whoop. Come on. Okay. It kind of adds a little bit extra to that shield piece, which I think is cool. And it doesn't really, it doesn't get in the way of anything else. I don't have to worry about it like getting it on the forearm. And I kind of like having the bulk of her defense on one side. And I just think that looks cool with the sword. Let me grab a different blast effect part. I mean, obviously you could use any blast effects, but like grab the Deathsaurus blast effects. There it is with purple. You basically treat them like lightsabers, which is kind of fun, actually. It almost makes me wish we got more of this in other legacy figure accessories, you know, having the option to use a weapon as a melee thing and then have like blast effects being used as the actual like effect part of the blade itself, or club weapon or whatever. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. I'm definitely rambling. Point is, this looks cool. I like it. I do, however, again, really wish that they did the whole asymmetrical thing for Shadow Striker, and it really annoys me that they didn't. But hey, who knows? Maybe, probably, we'll get a Repro Labels set that might at least address some of that. And if not, again, I can always paint it myself. Now, in terms of size, she's a Legacy Deluxe, so she's about what you'd expect. She is a Voyager and the equivalent of a Tall Deluxe. And our Amiibo. And we get these two out of here. And move Dinobot over. Bring in a different Legacy Deluxe. And so there she is with Burnout. And come here, Dinobot. And she's actually about the same height as Burnout. About. Burnout is ever so slightly taller and definitely bulkier. But like, there's not that much of a size discrepancy between the two of them, which I think says a lot, seeing as how Burnout's car mode looked so much bigger. So there is that, but gonna do a couple more legacy size comparisons. So let's bring in the pretty boy himself. Here she is with Velocitron Blur with Repro Labels. Again, really, really like Velocitron Blur, and with the Repro Labels, I think that makes a huge difference. And also, here she is with Voyager Animated Prime. And, I never actually put these, I didn't put Blur and Shadow Striker next to each other beforehand. I didn't realize that Blur is actually on the taller end of current deluxes. which I guess makes sense because he's technically derived from the Titan's Return mold, which is from a while back. So maybe that's why he's a little taller. I don't know. Also, I need to fix these stickers on Blur. Some of them are peeling up. Anyway, with all of that done, now it's time for that most important of size comparisons. Here is Shadow Striker with the Duck Tank. And that is it for Legacy Shadow Striker. And as I've said many times, I do actually like this figure for what she is. I'm not a huge fan of the car roof shield thing. I do wish they had handled the chest differently because it's just nothing close to what she looked like in the show in terms of like shape or detailing. And I really hate the fact that they didn't push that asymmetrical thing, which again, I know I've been talking about that a lot, but it's a huge part of her character design. Not her character specifically, though it does play a part in her character, but it's a huge part of her character design. And having it not even vaguely hinted at in the toy is a little frustrating. And again, like, I can understand them not doing any tooling to make it an asymmetrical sculpt, especially if they don't plan on resculpting anything for Sideburn. But they could have done something with colors. But anyway, that's enough of the rambling. All of my griping aside, like, even with all of that, I still think she looks really cool. Especially like this. I like the sword weapon and the shield and the slightly fan-moded stuff with, like, the flaps getting out of the way so that they're not, like, making her silhouette look weird and, like, adding that extra slope to the chest. I just think, with a little bit of work, she's actually pretty cool. But that is enough about what I think of Legacy Shadow Striker. What do you all think of this gal? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and next time, we're going to be looking at another lady from Legacy.